I'd like to share with you a very interesting conversation that I had with a new client. It's my hope that what I shared with her is a help to you the way it was to her. She's 21 years old, a recent college graduate. She's preparing to sit for her CPA exam. She is just out of a 5-year relationship that she said devastated her. I said, explain to me why it was devastating. She said, well, Doc, I would best describe our time together as a consistent wave of chaos. I said, what do you mean by that? She said, well, the highs in our relationship were rare, but when they were there, they were good. She said, but the lows were very low and the lows were very consistent. I said, I understand. I said, what were some of the things that made up some of those lows? She said, that he was a serial cheater, that he cheated at least 5 times in the relationship. She learned of these cheating occasions, not necessarily when they occurred, but she did learn of them at some point within the relationship, and she chose to stay. She said, Doc, I own the fact that I chose to stay, and that may have been an error, but maybe it was my youth, I don't know, but I really thought that he was my person. I said, why do you say that? She said, well, he admitted to these things after, me really catching some things. So I'm not quite sure if it was really him admitting it as much as being caught. But in doing so, he then said to her and has been saying to her leading up to the breakup, that she changed his life and that he could not imagine a life without her. I said, that's interesting. I said, how do you feel about that? She started crying. And I gave her a moment to cry. And she says, Doc, I'm going to sound crazy to you, but I really can't let go, I believe, of our history together as much as I can't let go of him. It's 5 years of my life that I feel like I've wasted. And she cried more and she was really heavily sobbing. And I gave her a moment and I said to her, I understand, but let me talk for a while and give you a chance to gather yourself while we do. I said, ma'am, we in general have a very unhealthy relationship with nostalgia and anxiety. And I said, I'll deal with nostalgia first. One of the things that we all have to understand is that just because you have a connection that created a memory, it doesn't mean that that memory is worthy of a future. She started to sob even more. She said, Doc, I knew this. I said, just bear with me. It's going to get better. We sometimes connect memories of the past with the promise of a future. And just because you had genuinely good memories with a person, or you had an extended future with a person, it does not mean that either those memories or that period of time is worthy of a future. I said, but let's take this further. I hope in this you've learned a very basic lesson, and that is there are 2 things you can't do to a man. You can't change a man, and you can't fix a man. She said, I understand that. And I said, I want to even be equal and fair here. You can't fix a woman, and you can't change a woman. The fact of the matter is, anytime you are in a relationship with a man who says to you, hey, you have changed my life. You fixed me. I was a mess. I am a mess and was a mess until I met you. And now being with you has fixed my life and changed my life. It sounds noble. But my $1 million question to you is he the most complete version of himself? She said, no, sir. I said, why? She said, I'm not 100% sure. I said, take a guess. She said, well, if he claims that he became that version of him because of me, then he's implying that I'm the one that changed him. I said, correct. I said, but why does that make him not the most complete version? She said, then I'm not sure. I said, it doesn't make him the most complete version of himself, because the supposed change that he's claimed to experience has been connected to you. And anytime we change or heal or try to fix ourselves for other people, we're really not changed. We're really not healed, and we're really not fixed. I said, so when he says to you, you made him the best version of him after cheating 5 times. These changes that he's supposedly made were never for himself. These changes were for you. She said, I get that. I said, let me explain to you quickly the challenge with what I call Lifetime Achievement Awards. I said, have you ever heard of that? She said, of course. I said, you've watched award shows, correct? She said, absolutely. I said, who gets a Lifetime Achievement Award? She said, people who have a consistent body of work over time. I said, that's a great answer. I said, have you ever heard of the group Milli Vanilli? She said, no, sir. Now, granted, she's 21. I get it. I said, you probably haven't. I said, when you get a chance, Google the group Milli Vanilli. These 2 light-skinned guys with dreads, decent-looking guys. My friends that are women used to always think they were attractive. Had maybe 1 or 2 hit songs, and they skyrocketed to the top of the charts. Were on some of the award shows and performing, until it came out that, number one, they not only didn't have many hits, it came out that they were lip syncing, that they really weren't performing the songs that they claim to perform. She's listening to me. I said, here's the truth about them. They were not only fake, they were one-hit wonders. And when someone is a one-hit wonder and they're not authentic, they don't deserve a Lifetime Achievement Award, do they? She put her head down. She started to cry more. I said, ma'am, I'm not trying to hurt you. I said, but let's just be honest. When we don't call a thing, it creates anxiety, which leads me to that point about anxiety that I made earlier. I'm privileged to work with all types of people in this space, and a lot of people who struggle with anxiety. And one of the things that I try to teach them is something I'm going to teach you, and that is calling a thing solves 95% of your problems. Calling an ex Milli Vanilli hurts, but it solves 95% of your problems. Why? She said, because you're being truth about who they really are, or telling the truth rather about who they really are. I said, exactly. I said, ma'am, you know what fixes the other 5%? It's having the courage to make the decision. Take anybody who has anxiety. One easy way to deal with that anxiety is to be honest about a thing. Relationship, ex, family history, childhood trauma, whatever it is. Be honest about that thing. That solves 95% of the problem. The other 5% is having the courage to do something different. I said, ma'am, you're hurting over this 5-year relationship. But I'm here to tell you, history is not enough for you to stay. And you have to embrace what's called a Pookie experience. She started laughing while she was crying. She said, Doc, what in the world is that? I said, have you seen the movie New Jack City? She said, I have. I said, interesting. I said, Chris Rock's in this movie. He's a reformed crackhead, or trying to be, that they want to use to take down G Money. And they had to put him in a rehab facility and let all the crack in his system go out of him. So he's turning on the bed and he's sprawling, trying to get this crack out of his system so that he can recover. I said, ma'am, when you execute decisions in your life in courage, it's not a comfortable decision, but it at least positions you to have the courage to look beyond history and do what's right. I said, ma'am, your history with this man is not enough. And I don't care if you have to cry for the next 6 months. Go through a Pookie experience and get this out of your system so that you recognize that your history with him is not enough for you to continue to have anxiety about everything that he was not. I hope this made sense. If it did, type church in the comments with 3 R's, and then remember you've got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Zeb. Listen, I've been dying to make this announcement for a very long time now, and I'm pleased to say that Inspire Nation has officially launched. Yes, we finally got a Facebook and YouTube community group where we're going to have exclusive content, exclusive shorts, exclusive discussion prompts, where we're going to engage with other people literally around the world who are on the same healing journey that we're on. I need you to go find these pages right now on Facebook and YouTube. Inspire Nation, follow the page, join the group, introduce yourself, and be prepared to link up with literally thousands of people around the world who are on the same healing journey, who are looking for the same resources, and who want to also be surrounded with other like-minded individuals who are growing in the same direction as you are. I'm so excited about this because it's the beginning of some great things I can't talk about right now. Listen, you got two jobs. One, be better today than what you were yesterday. And two, don't forget what I told you.